Good Friday afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a great week and getting ready for the weekend. My name is Darren Pope, and I'm a developer advocate for CloudBees. And today we're going to be talking about what's new in Jenkins LTS 2.263.4. And with me today, I've got Mark Waite. Mark, how you doing? Ah, you're muted. Wait, it's me though. It's me. Now go.
Doing great. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
Let's just put it this way. That's what happens. That's what it feels like right now. Man, hair, everything, it doesn't matter today. Okay, so this Wednesday, .4 came out. It was the last of the 263 line. We hope. Why is it a .4, you ask? Usually it's been 1, 2, 3. Well, we talked about that a little bit or did we? Did we talk about? I don't think we did.
We did.
Yeah.
We had the .2 release. The .2
Yep.
release was a security release. The security release had some surprises in it that caused us to, about 2 weeks later, deliver a .3, which was to resolve the regressions. Now, we've done it before. We had 2.235 had actually a .5, and we're not ashamed of doing extra releases if we need to.
Yep. It doesn't happen very often. I think the last time that I can remember before that was 138. For some reason, that number's sticking out in my head. So it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So don't be surprised if it happens. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what is new. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, there is, as I find it, there it is, there is not a lot new in .4. Thankfully.
Right, and that's intentional, right? One of the benefits of the long-term support process is things should remain relatively stable. And part of stability is not bringing a lot of changes in.
Yep, and in fact, before we get there, let me give you the floor. Here you go. And talk about the LTS process, because normally we start off, in case you've never seen or hung out with us before, you might not understand what the LTS process is within the Jenkins community. So Mark, why don't you recap that real quick to begin with?
Sure. So Jenkins long-term support releases are selected 4 times a year, so roughly every 3 months. We choose a baseline release. That's one of the weekly releases. That baseline release is selected based on feedback from users, based on developer experiences, and based on bug reports in the Jenkins issue tracker. We choose that weekly release, then we spend a period assuring that we understand which things might need to backport into that release, which things might need special extra attention. We create a changelog for it. We create an upgrade guide for it. And we prepare it as the beginning of a series of long-term support releases that will live for about 3 months. So .1 is the first release of a chosen baseline. About a month later, we'll do .2 typically. About a month later, .3, and that will be the end. And then the next time, we'll go on to the next chosen baseline. So, for instance, we chose 2.263 as the baseline in December, and we developed it and then released it in January. And now we've released .2. Oh, no, I take it back. We chose it in November, but you get the picture. We've chosen it, we release it, and now it keeps going.
And that's where we are today. So we're now at 263.4. And you can see here there were only 3 items that were in .4. So we're not going to go through all the big things that we typically see. That, my friend, will be next month.
That's right. And next month we've chosen a new baseline.
And that number is
277.
There you go.
So it's it's 14 bigger than 263. So it's about 14 weeks afterwards. And 277 has a whole bunch of new and interesting capabilities in it.
But hold that for just a second. Let's get through what's in .4, and then we'll get into the more interesting things. Just as a quick thing. So improved performance in fingerprint file creation. Let me show you something. Since this is a small release, I want people to see something. Hang on a second. I meant to have this loaded up and I forgot. Oh, wait. Do I even have it saved? Oh, great. Now my mouse is dying. There we go. There it is. Okay, so check this out. Do you ever want to know what's really in a Jenkins? I'm going to call the .3 to .4 a full release, right? Because it is. It truly is. So here is the comparison from 3 to 4 once it loads. There were only 10 files changed. That's it.
Right.
10 files. So we can get in here and we can see exactly what changed. So since we normally don't have this because there's a lot more things changing, like here's the fingerprint change specifically, right? They did a synchronized block to speed things up. Okay, that's cool. And I don't remember what the other 2 items were, but this is how you check. Oh, this was not being able to sign up if you're not supposed to be able to, or if you're not supposed to be able to sign up. That's a nice cleanup item.
Right.
That feels very very home and garden, right? We're doing some renovation here. And there was one other code piece. It was just a little bit of this cleanup on a tab bar, right? This is the release from the previous, from .3 to .4. This is all that happened.
Right.
So if you're ever curious about how to do that, if you've never done that, in the description of this video, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching elsewhere, it's in the description. There will be a link to what I just put up on screen. So you can see how to do that diff live for yourself inside of GitHub. If you've never done the comparison inside of GitHub, this can save you tons of time. Tons. So I figured since this is a small one today, Mark, I would just do something a little different with this.
Excellent choice. And it's a great way to highlight what it means to be a new release and why we work so hard to keep the long-term support release nice and stable and steady.
Yep. Okay. So again, correct a font in Freestyle. Are you still using Freestyle? Don't be using Freestyle.
I do.
No, I know you
I
do.
do have some.
I know you do. I was talking to all of our other viewers today. If you're still using Freestyle, consider not. Just because it'll make a kitten happy somewhere. I don't know. And then here's the sign up item. Okay. That's all we're going to talk about on 263. Again, super small release.
Whoop. There's one more item. Oh, you're going to take us there, right?
You're right.
This is now. Notice it's not. This next item is not actually in
here.
the changelog, but it's in the upgrade guide. So if you'll back up a page, or we can go to the blog post. If you go. The blog post describes what changed here, and this is only for certain users, but for those users, it could be quite important. So I like to use Docker images as my base image that I use to run Jenkins. I like it because it makes my life simpler.
Why does it make it simpler?
Well, because I can manage my Jenkins configuration as code inside a Docker image. And by managing it as code inside a Docker image, I have the ability to roll forward and to roll backwards to find out where I introduce something. So as a Jenkins developer, I care very much when did I introduce a particular bug, or when did something happen that was relevant. And so for me, tracking Jenkins's configuration as code has been a great help as I try to isolate when did this problem begin and when did it end.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Fair enough. So it's right here. Why? Why did this happen? Why are we going from Debian 9 to Debian 10?
Right. So what happened is Jenkins Docker images for many years have by default been based on Debian 9. Debian 9 is a marvelously stable operating system. It has been the Debian stable operating Debian stable operating system for many years. It worked great. Unfortunately, Debian is going forward, or fortunately, call it what you will. Debian has released Debian 10. The Debian 10 release is their new preferred release. And they will release Debian 11 probably within the next 3 to 6 months. So we wanted to get onto the stable version instead of what they call old stable. So we needed to move from Debian 9 to Debian 10.
And really, this is probably one of the key ones too. Debian 9 updates were discontinued in July of last year.
Right. And so now Debian long-term support security is continuing, but
Yeah.
we want to be based on an operating system that the maintainers of that operating system, another open source community, are actively supporting with security fixes. So for us, switching from 9 to 10 has a benefit that we're on the more actively maintained version of the Debian operating system, not on the preceding version.
Yep. But it's not just the Debian change. There's also
Right.
a JDK change.
Right, and this one is actually it's a bit of a point of embarrassment for me, all right,
Okay.
because what we did was we chose a specific Docker image that we would use as the basis for Jenkins, and that Docker image we chose was this thing called OpenJDK, so from the OpenJDK project, named 8JDK Stretch. And when we chose that, we thought, oh, the OpenJDK project will continue to maintain that and update it. However, about a year ago, they stopped updating it, right? And so it was frozen in time on JDK 8U 242. And meanwhile, the OpenJDK project has released 252, 262, 272, 275, and 282. So we were badly behind on our JDK usage and needed to come forward. Now, that means there were some changes in Java that we were not getting benefit from between 242 and 282, and now we do.
Yep. And it's basically, so what, I did not take a look at how it's being built. Are we basing now, instead of being, because previously we were based on Jenkins was based on OpenJDK. The from was OpenJDK, correct?
Correct. And now it's adopt OpenJDK.
Okay.
And we're based on the adopt image, and we've been very, very pleased with adopt OpenJDK's willingness to support us. They provide the base operating system definition, and they update it when they release new versions of adopt OpenJDK. And so
go ahead.
We get it almost automatically by virtue of them doing this, and our automatic dependency computation tells us, oh, there's a new version, you want to use this new version.
Okay. So the adopt side is taking care of the base image as well as the Debian. So the Debian's coming along roughly for free.
Correct.
Because of how they're baking.
Yeah, we're actually, our image is actually based on the adopt OpenJDK image, which is based on Debian. So we're relying on adopt, and adopt relies on Debian. It's great to be an open source project like this where we get to build on the shoulders of others, and in this case, we build on the file system layers of others, not just their shoulders.
Right. And it makes the project's life much simpler.
It does.
If you had to come up from scratch, you wouldn't want to do that.
We like letting other people who are experts in operating system configuration do as much of that as they can.
Yes. So right now, everything is, so are you, how many different images are we baking off of this right now? Is it 8 and 11 based, or?
We've been doing adopt OpenJDK with 11 for quite a while already.
Right.
And 8 is now using adopt OpenJDK. Plus, we're doing adopt OpenJDK on our CentOS images. Plus, we're doing adopt OpenJDK on our Alpine images. So we have universally switched to adopt OpenJDK across the board, and are very pleased in our relationship with the Eclipse Adoptium program. That was the project formerly known as adopt OpenJDK.
Right. And that is a hard one for me to break the habit on.
Yes.
Okay. Now, here's the uh-ohs.
Right. And this is where Docker has this marvelous benefit that it lets us give you a copy of the file system exactly the way we think it should be configured. And that means it has all sorts of operating system packages already installed, like command line Git, like SSH, and they're exactly the version we wanted packaged. However, as part of that, we use this as our opportunity to reconsider which packages should be included, because every package that we include is also a risk of a problem by having been included. We don't want a security issue in an irrelevant package or a less popular package to affect the Jenkins Docker image. So we intentionally removed Mercurial, Subversion, and Bazaar source control systems. Now, we give instructions here on how to put them back if you need them. But the answer is still, we intentionally remove those because many, many, many users are no longer touching Subversion, even fewer Mercurial or Bazaar.
Right.
Git, in terms of software configuration management, seems to have won the battle. It just seems to own software configuration management now.
It does today.
Yes.
We'll wait and see if the author of Git becomes enamored with something else. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. He's got. They have an amazing team at multiple companies maintaining that product, and it's very impressive.
Well, so taking a look at this, and my screen obviously is off to this side. Python being removed because Python 2 said night over a year ago anyway.
Right. Well, and that's an interesting choice, right? Because we're based on Debian 10. Debian 10 intentionally includes Python as an available package, and it's Python 2. But we consciously chose to drop it from our packaging. If someone says, "Ooh, but I must have Python," what they'll do is they'll install Python 3 from the Debian 10 packages. So it's they can have Python, but it's better that they know, the Jenkins project intentionally stopped delivering Python 2 because the Python project doesn't support it anymore.
Right. So the thing I like about this is not only is this the Adoptium image, this is a stripped down, not by much, 7 packages and probably some dependencies, right? I mean, 7 big packages, if you will.
There are quite a number of other packages that are enumerated as to what's been added and removed. But you're right, this is not, we are not delivering a full Debian operating system, right? We intentionally narrowed this thing to choose only the components that we thought were most crucial for Jenkins administrators.
And that's the key part here. What is crucial for Jenkins administrators?
Yep.
This is the first release in history to where that's mattered. Or not mattered. It's always mattered. But this is the first release in history to where it's happened.
Right. This is our first time, particularly with a major platform like Java 8 on Debian.
Yeah.
Right. We had gone through this kind of transition when we made a transition on the Alpine images about 9 months ago. Right. We did a similar transition when we made a transition on the JDK 11 images. Those two are both relatively lower volume platforms for us than Java 8 on Debian. This is a high volume, very visible change.
Is this the last of those types of changes? Are there any other?
No, there will be more changes like this as we go forward. We'll probably, when Debian releases Debian Bullseye, the Debian 11, we will likely switch our Java 11 base image to be based on Bullseye. Right, because there is no reason not to let people who are using Java 11 get all the benefits of Debian 11's implementation.
Oh, that makes too much sense. Okay. So again, the release itself was, right? Not real exciting. It almost fit on one page when we were scrolling the differences, right? It wasn't that big, which is great. But this, especially if you're running Jenkins from a Docker image, or let me rephrase that. If you're running Jenkins from a container image, I'll correct myself.
Good.
You need to be aware of this change. There's upgrade notes. There's this blog post.
Right, and it's even a little more narrow than that, right? This is the Jenkins project delivers several different image variants, right? This change does not touch the Alpine image variant. It doesn't touch the JDK 11 image variant. It doesn't touch, let's see, what's the other? It doesn't touch the CentOS image variant. So those image variances are unaffected by this, but similar changes will likely come to those. The day will come, for instance, when CentOS 7 is no longer supported by the CentOS project. At that time, we'll have to switch to a different package, to something to the next generation. Likewise, Alpine, currently based on 3.12, will need to switch to the newer Alpine version that's now 3.13 over the course of the next some months.
Yep. It's never ending.
Right.
But what is ending is 263.
That is the intent, right?
So we've gone over this in previous videos. We want to bring it up one more time, because if you have not prepared for the March release yet, the next LTS, which is going to be based on 277, now's the time.
It is.
Time's quickly running out.
Well, this is the most precious time for this kind of preparation, because the weeklies have been evaluating this for the last several months, steadily improving, detecting issues, resolving them in plugin releases, resolving them in core changes as needed. And the rate of core change has dropped dramatically. We think the core is ready, but we still know that there are plugins that need more work. And so finding those plugins, choosing them, and getting them fixed is good work for the next roughly 4 weeks.
Yep. And if you're not aware of the changes coming in the March release, here are the 4 big bullets. Table to divs. UI. Who wants UI? Table to divs. A CG turning into Spring Security. That's a big one. But fortunately has been fairly boring based on everything that I saw.
So.
Yeah.
Impressively so, right? I mean, that is a major component change beneath the covers. And yet the incompatibilities, Jesse did an amazing job of detecting them and getting fixes out to the specific plugins that needed a change.
Yep. Then the one right below that is the XStream unfork, which that's everything, if you think about it, right? Everything in some way, shape, or form, well, not everything, probably a very high percentage goes through XStream. If something goes to disk, it goes through XStream.
Right, exactly. Things that get written to disk, things that get read from disk, and that's everything in Jenkins pretty much, right?
Yep.
If it doesn't get persisted to disk, it doesn't live beyond the Jenkins process's lifetime. If it doesn't get read from disk, it can't be remembered across the process. So XStream is everywhere. Yeah.
Yep. And then finally, jQuery. It needed an upgrade. Why not?
Yes.
But it's a big one. So if you've not read through these details, the links for all of these will be down in the description as well. Anything else that we want to talk about on that? And there is actually, since I have it here, there is actually another post from Jesse that goes into the details of both Spring Security and XStream. Anything else we need to talk about on this, or is this it? We're done talking about this.
I think you had the right message. It is check the configuration user experience for the set of plugins that matter to you with Jenkins 2.277. And that, yes, that's the Jenkins weekly release, but that's the weekly release that will be the base for Jenkins LTS in March.
Correct. Unless something very bizarre happens.
It would, well, given where the process is, it would have to be wildly bizarre, because we will intentionally backport changes to 2.277. If we find a disaster, we will backport to 277 in order for 277.1. And we have several that we've already identified as backport candidates. So one of them was related to Internet Explorer 11 user experience. There are a couple others like that where, hey, we didn't have as many people running Internet Explorer 11 in the early stages as we did now, and we found some problems.
People are still using Internet Explorer?
Don't get me started. That's
Let's talk about something happy. Let's talk about your the upcoming Contributor Summit.
Yeah, sure. So the Jenkins community annually, and sometimes even more frequently than annually, will gather together contributors and have a contributor summit. In the past, we did that at FOSDEM, for instance, or at Jenkins World, places where we would have people naturally coming together anyway, and we would hold meetings where they could sit together in a room and talk about what should Jenkins become, how should we evolve it, and what should be the next steps. Well, 2020 and 2021 are just different, right? Things aren't happening face to face anymore. But as part of our initiative, we said we'd like to do a contributor summit. So February 23rd through February 25th, we're going to do a contributor summit, and we're going to do it differently this year. This time, what it'll be is we'll start with a 2-hour segment welcoming everybody. Then a 48-hour period where contributors will meet in times that work for their time zone. And then a 2-hour end to summarize the results of it. So instead of everybody meeting together around a table in a conference room somewhere, we're going to meet together in a meeting room, in a Zoom conference room, or in an online conference room for 2 hours, then break up to time zone specific tracks so that our contributors in China can meet during a time that works for them. Our contributors in India can meet at a time that works for them. Our contributors in Africa can meet at a time that works for them, and our contributors in Brazil or on the East Coast of the US can meet at a time that works for them.
That time for me is 10 a.m. Eastern time.
And that's an
I
excellent
wish.
choice. Yeah, well,
I wish it was that simple. So Contributor Summit, if people want to find out more about it, how they can get involved, what's the best way to do that?
watch the Jenkins developers mailing list. Watch also the Jenkins.io blog. So www.jenkins.io. And at the top, you'll see the blog. And I will be posting a blog post on how to register in the course of the next 3 or 4 days. So we will be taking registrations all next week. Right now, we've identified several tracks that are already of interest. So there will definitely be a documentation track. There will definitely be a security track. There will be an infrastructure track and probably a release track. We'll likely have a Chinese localization track. We expect we may also have a platform track where we talk about ARM64 and System 390 and PowerPC and, yes, the classic AMD 64. So we've got lots of interesting topics that people who want to help us evaluate and advance Jenkins and its state of the art should come join us.
System 390. I'm still stuck there.
Hey, the Z-Series mainframe is impressively still busy in large businesses. The banking industry is still deeply attached to mainframe series of equipment.
Yes, they are. Don't get me started on that. There's a whole nother conversation there. Okay, is there anything else that we need to cover today? Maybe just a recap. So recap. New release came out on Wednesday. Everything seems to be good. No surprises, at least that have been seen.
Mm-hmm.
If you're using the Debian-based image, gotcha is there. Potentially, maybe not. Hopefully not. Contributor Summit coming up in
2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Right. So we're about 10 days away from the start of the Contributor Summit.
Is that Tuesday through Thursday? The 23rd?
It is. Tuesday through Thursday. That's correct.
And you will be making a blog post and be watching the Jenkins devs mailing list?
The Jenkins developer mailing list. I will probably also announce it in the Jenkins user list and through the Jenkins Twitter account and through the Jenkins LinkedIn account. We will actively promote it because the Jenkins developers list is certainly a common place for contributors, but many documentation authors, for instance, don't actually subscribe to the dev list, right? They're on the docs list, or Jenkins infra contributors are typically on the infra list, not on the dev list.
So basically, if you're following Jenkins anywhere, you should hear about it.
That's right. And if you don't hear about it, please
go to Twitter.
Contact me. Right.
Yeah.
I am on Twitter. Lots of Jenkins CI is on Twitter. Twitter will promote it there as well.
Yep. And there's Mark's Twitter handle right there, Mark E. Waite. And once I see it, I'll start retweeting it as well. Anything else? This is a short one. Basically, we're just saving up our air for the March release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that one hopefully will also be not surprising, but now we can finally say it's here.
Right. Well, and that one will include a substantial upgrade guide. The .1 changelog will be significant, and in our next session, when you and I talk about 277, we'll review the changelog and we'll talk about the upgrade guide, right? Because we owe it to each other to talk about the latest information that we gather by that time on, hey, here are the things you need to be aware of as you're making the move from 2.263 to 2.277.
Yep. Anything else to say today, Mark? I will give you nothing.
No. Thanks for the time. Thanks very much.
Yeah. All right. So, Mark, I'm going to boot you out, and I'm going to close up here real quick for about 20 seconds. So, but don't go. I'll come back to you, though, Mark. But after everybody else is gone. Shh. Don't tell them. But I'll tell you. All right. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us today for this live stream talking about what's new in 2.263.4. If you haven't subscribed to CloudBees TV yet, why not? Take a moment, go ahead and click on that subscribe button, and then ring that bell, and you'll be notified anytime Mark shows back up, or anybody else does, with new content here on CloudBees TV. Also, if this video was helpful for you today, go ahead and click that thumbs up video or thumbs up button. That'll help us out a lot. And finally, follow us on CloudBees Devs on Twitter, or you can also follow me directly on Twitter at Darren Pope. Now, again, hopefully today was very helpful for you. Thanks for hanging out with us live today. If you're watching the replay, thanks for hanging out until the end. And be ready for the March release, because when it lands, we'll be back to talk about it a day or two right after it releases. So you'll be up to date and knowing what's going on in the latest release of Jenkins LTS. Thanks. Have a great day, and we will see you in the next video.